Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics, where that is posts covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today, I'm joined by a rather cold Edwin. Hi, Edwin.
G'day, Martin. I'm surprised you recognise me with my new glasses. My eyes are a bit tired, and I've just had to wear my glasses today. But I'm surprised you recognise me.
Well, I assume it's some, James Bond style, right?
Yeah, I was going for the Mr. Magoo look, but
Mr. Magoo, very well.
yeah. So I was trying to, each to their own. James Bond to some, Mr. Magoo to others.
Yeah. But my name is Magoo. Magoo doesn't quite have the same ring as my name is Bond, James Bond, right?
Listen, man, if you're holding onto a gun and you're pointing at somebody, I can tell you what, you will be remembering their name.
So it's very windy up there in the mountains.
Very, very windy, Martin. Very windy. There's a lot of winds blowing. There's the winds in the financial landscape. Dusty and Evan were very concerned with the winds blowing last night. We just planted some bok choy and other seedlings, and they were a bit concerned. They wanted to go out last night at 2:00 in the morning to put some mulch down on them because they thought that the seedlings were going to get a little bit cold. And the property market seems to be cooling down as well. So all sorts of windy, shifty things happening at the moment.
Yeah, financial headwinds with mortgage rates. I mean, if you look at what's happened over the last few days, right? Fixed rates up, fixed rates down a bit, fixed rates up, variable rates down, speculation about more rates going up. And in fact, I think it was the Finance Brokers Association published a report this afternoon that said if rates go up a little bit, then something like 57% of mortgage borrowers will be in difficulty. So that's even worse than my stress.
They've picked up the baton from you, Martin. They're the doomsayers now, are they?
Well, it's amazing. It amazes me. I normally am out there in front with my, sort of modelling and suggesting, but they're saying, well, we have done a survey and we think 57% of households will find it very difficult if rates go up even a little bit. So, I tend to agree with that, unfortunately. We are really in very, very weird times. And of course, some of the banks are fixed. Some of the banks have put fixed rates up multiple times in a week. What's it doing to sentiment?
Well, that's right. And then you add listing numbers going up as well, and the sentiment changing around let's say the narrative or the speak changing around, and the stories that the agents are telling their vendors and what's happening, what we're going to be opening up later on in the, with regard to some of the articles that have come out in the mainstream media. So all that obviously is going to change both the perception of the prices that people are going to be paying moving forward with regards to property, what's going to happen to property prices, and as well as what the expectations are from the vendors. But with regards to your mention of what the financiers were talking about with in relation to what would happen if interest rates went up a little bit. Well, here's one of our followers, Martin, that just sent me that that DM with regards to what they're being what's going to happen with Westpac, and you heard it first on the Monday evening property rants. There you go. The fixed rates for Westpac are going to go up tomorrow.
Yeah, again.
Again, that's right. So, how is this the beginning? Is this the beginning of the end or the end of the beginning?
Well, it's certainly the end of very cheap money for some time, because of course all of the yield curves have moved up smartly, particularly because of the expectation on future inflation, and of course in the US as well. And so the money markets are now betting on more interest rate rises than the Reserve Bank. And look, the fact of the matter is the Reserve Bank can sit on the sidelines and just watch this happen, right? Because if the banks end up putting mortgage rates up and getting people over onto the variable side of the book rather than the fixed rates, then the Reserve Bank can sit on its hands for a bit and do nothing, right? So it doesn't really have much connection now to the cash rate. But it has a real connection to real households and real budgets, and even small increases in mortgage rates will definitely be a problem. Now, some people will, of course, be locked into low rates for some time. But what happens when those mortgages come up for renewal in a few weeks, few months, with rates high.
Well, and not only that, but how is it going to affect all the other markets, all the commercial, from the commercial side of things, and the commercial lending and everything else that gets tacked onto the principal place of residence, all those rates as well. A lot of people, I believe, business operators, as I've been saying over and over again, and I'll continue to say it, that there are many agencies out there that are living on their second and third credit cards. That's the reason why they're existing. How many other businesses are operating under the same scenarios? And where you and I spoke about last year, where business operators, predominantly in the city, got hoodwinked into refurbishing their businesses, their takeaway shops, their cafes, small restaurants, and the like. And in the entertainment industry, all this, in the hospitality, and they spent tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in preparation. And what happened last year? They got there was a lockdown over the Christmas period. So there's so much uncertainty. So the question is how the one side of the coin, one side of the equation is the rates that we hear about with regards to mortgages, but the other side is all the other rates with credit cards, business loans, all types of loans from second tier, third tier banks to loan sharks, and there are people that are struggling with shorter income possibilities because the hours have been cut down. There's a group that I'm of the understanding that there's a group in the CBA that are being basically told if they don't get the vaccine, they're going to go out, and we're going to potentially hear a small action by a group of people in the CBA that are going to be going head to head with the bank. So there's a lot of other institutions that are facing these internal issues, and so but it comes back to one thing is rates, another thing is standard of living, and how much money you're bringing home by way of incomes, and the list goes on, Martin, with you and I have spoken about in the past with regards to businesses offering those that want to work from home, offering them a lesser pay, and obviously that was the big surprise that if people can do the work from home, well, why should they be paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to a specialist when they could hire underlings, 2 or 3 that would do the work of one, and it goes on and on and on. So it's more to the point as to how much money are you bringing home and how much money are you going to have moving forward.
Well, that's right, and that's of course what the mortgage stress data that I analyse is all focused on: money in, money out. How much money is coming into the household, how much money is going out, and that includes mortgages. And there are many households that are very much up against it. And if rates do rise, as we expect, it's going to just create more pressure. And as you say, there's direct and indirect consequences of that. Interesting, you're getting feedback from some of your followers, as I am in some of my conversations, that the property market definitely appears to have turned in some areas, and sentiment's changing on the ground. People are being a little bit more realistic in some of the settlement deals that are going on at the moment. So this is, I think, a very important pivotal point, right? With the high listings, auction clearance rates dropping off because of the high listings, sentiment changing, interest rates. So the purple patch that we had, which of course was completely artificial, it was basically ultra low interest rates and government stimulus. That's all disappearing. So property market is heading off in a new direction. Who knows where it's going to end up? I have no idea, but it's certainly, we always say to people, be cautious. And I think now is a really good time to be cautious.
Definitely. And it's something that you and I started placing extra attention and took extra, care in noticing and noting down the numbers, as we said early. The first week of August was surprisingly, back then, before August, the narrative from the mainstream was, prices will skyrocket to the moon, this, that, and the other. Yes, they did go up. Many areas experienced a lot more, higher surges than others. But we were always questioning how long that was going to go on for, given the fact that all the other economic factors around it, with supply chain issues, mandates, vaccine mandates, will you have a job, won't you have a job, all these other uncertainties. But now, as you and I said, and I've been saying for a while, and that is, keep an eye on the numbers, because numbers don't lie. Yours and mine and Louis Christopher's numbers don't lie, but all the others, they're very rubbery. But so as we've kept an eye, we went from the lowest amount ever seen historically, that I'm of the opinion that ever seen since domain and real estate, the portals came to life, late 90s, early 2000s, and it was unprecedented to only have to have under 5,000 freestanding home listings on market in the Sydney region was just absolutely gobsmacking. Hence the reason why there was so much FOMO. But now that the numbers are reaching last year's peak, the sentiment is changing. The conversations are changing. The agents that we speak to day in, day out on a weekly basis, they're telling us what their beliefs are, and as they change their beliefs, obviously that's going to filter down to their vendors, and then the vendors' expectations are also going to be going to drop, and this is what happens. But again, it takes a little bit of time. We said a couple of weeks ago that now we're really monitoring the numbers on a day-to-day basis. When I say monitoring, I mean posting out on our Twitter feed on a daily basis. We monitor them on a daily basis anyway, but I'm making more of an effort to post them on my Twitter feed so that people can see the realistic changes. But again, it goes back to my other side of things, Martin, and that is the fact that only a small amount of numbers changes the sentiment so rapidly and so drastically, and it goes both ways. So take 1,000 off market, and FOMO goes through the roof. Add 1,000 on market, and things will work. When it's the Sydney is not a small market, but it seems like the numbers on market, as low as they are still to date in comparison to 2015 and even 2017. It really has a pivotal point, plays a big role in how sentiment pivots from one side to the other.
Absolutely, and it's the same with the marginal buyer. So, a few more, a few less changes the game, mortgage game as well as the property game. So it is at the margins, and unfortunately, there are a lot of marginal buyers at the moment who are being pushed out rather than actually coming into the market. And I suppose this is one reason why you might have had a new follower.
Well, look, strange things are happening, Martin. I started sort of questioning myself, why is the Premier of New South Wales following me? And I sort of put it out there, and I started thinking, is it because he wants some property tips for his family? After all, he's got 5 kids, hasn't he? So he's got to look after their future, like every other father would and parent would. That was my first question. And then I thought a little bit further, and I thought, gee, after Friendly Geordie's getting into a lot of strife, maybe I'm next, because I do give developers that are sort of locked at the hip with politicians. I do give them a lot of stick. So, I started, we were chatting over with Dusty and Evan, and we thought, it could be, maybe he just likes the posts about them, my cat posts. So I'm not sure. But then there's the property rant. I think I sort of come to the point that I think that it's because, he's one of those closet followers of the Monday evening property rants, Martin. What do you think?
Well, I think it could be gardening tips. You forgot the gardening tips, right? How to make raised beds.
Yeah, well, true. I mean, you got to feed those hungry mouths. Come 2022, things are going to get nasty. So with I guess the bigger the family, the more you need to learn to become a green thumb. Not that I'm one. Hopefully, I don't kill the veggies that we're growing at the moment. But he's hoping.
And what about the wee chatters, right? It's gone a bit quiet.
Look, it is a bit quiet. It is still early days with regards to what happened in the meeting. You just get the mainstream news because of there's the arm of the news arm of the Communist Party. Obviously, were the only ones that were able to attend the meetings, and they put out what they want the rest of the world to listen to and to hear. But outside of those that policy meeting that they had last week. Outside of that, one of the things that have caught my attention with the chatter, with the WeChat chatterers, is being the rise in crime in mainland China with in what they've been posting. It's rather how people have just been set off by trivial issues that have led to deaths and stabbings and all in brawls in cabs and shops and the like. But this is a byproduct of the economic pressures that people are facing, no different to what we are, and it's only going to be magnified here in Sydney, is my opinion, particularly in the built-up areas where you're going to see. And you're going to see the effects of these economic pressures and these draconian laws and mandates that are coming about and stopping people from earning a decent income. So I feel, unfortunately, that we're only going to follow suit with what's happening over there. And I experience it myself. There's so much road rage on the road as you're driving around, and people are on edge. And when you stop, when you go into a shopping centre and the like, and it's or those build-up areas, it's just an eerie feeling, Martin.
Yeah, there's some weird stuff going down. I agree, and a lot of people are under severe pressure. The China story is getting more and more interesting. So the Evergrande thing ticks over. They managed to pay another late payment before they went into default, right? And all the pressure is now on the owner of the business to basically pony up some of his own money. He's got yachts and aeroplanes and things he can sort of throw at this. But the point is that the contagion more broadly across the property sector in China is probably now irreversible, because there are many more properties for sale, and transaction volumes have dropped, and prices are looking pretty weak. And the international financial markets are now beginning to wonder whether this is more than just a blip. Is it something more serious? So there's a lot happening, and it'll be interesting to see now that they've had their conference whether there'll be any more change of trajectory. But it's probably too soon to read, isn't that right?
Yeah, look, it is. But as I've been saying, I'm keeping an eye on the apartment numbers. They've been going up, rather steadily, and they're holding their ground. In other words, they're not reverting to lesser amounts by the end of the week, as you would see the freestanding homes. So it's sort of, for me, that's my gauge as to and the sentiment that the overseas investors and owners of investment properties here in Australia are going to have. But one thing for sure is that the local WeChat chatterers, they're definitely keeping away from apartments. They're definitely keeping away from strata complexes. They're parking their money in homes and land. And selling the commercial properties by way, the shops, the cafes, takeaway shops, or small restaurants and the like, and then moving away. Another thing that has come out of from the chatter is that some of the business people, local business people, they're obviously moving to warehousing, looking at to invest in warehousing, because that is a future that they see that's going to be stronger by way, because again, we don't manufacture anything, we warehouse, and you got to keep the stuff somewhere that we bring in. So that's the general sentiment at the moment. But going back to the crime and the issues around crime and the economic pressures, Martin, is I have seen over my lifetime here in Australia, I have seen suburbs, basically go from, as they say, from zero to hero, and then from are we likely to see some suburbs that are going to be affected the most from hero to zero, or the appetite to move into certain suburbs of Sydney, is that going to change? Where a couple of years ago it was the place to be. Back in the day when I was growing up in Gladesville, if you basically travelled beyond West Ryde, and you were telling your friends that you were going to go to Parramatta or you're going to go to Silverwater or Parramatta, it was God forbid. Why would you want to go out west? Things over time changes and the sentiments change. Also, as a young adult, I mean, we used to joke around and say some of the Northern Beaches areas and some of the eastern suburbs areas, your Maroubras, we used to call them Mount Druitt by the Sea. That's the persona. That's the vibe that it sort of gave you. And then now you try to buy a property in Maroubra for a freestanding home in Maroubra for under $4.5 million. And likewise in the Northern Beaches, and this is just an average home. So are those sentiments going to change? I mean, I've seen a lot of other suburbs in the West go up in value and drop in value just as quickly when a new demographic set in. So, but is this? Are we going to see more pressures, economic pressures, and that's going to affect, and we're going to see a more clear-cut black and white delineation of what was and what's going to be, or what could have been, or what, with regards to certain areas. I sort of look at the West and I see, well, a lot of the Western suburbs and areas, the people are used to, government support and government, being supported and having government subsidies and the like. But a lot of these other built up areas in the eastern suburbs, in the Northern Beaches, in your North Shores, they're not. And I find that a lot of these areas, like the Shire, a lot of them are, once say it was a working class area. So are these areas, if the economic strife increases and the pressure increases, are we going to see a lot of these areas revert back to where they were in the 80s, mid 80s, late 80s?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think, as you say, suburbs come up, suburbs come down. It's certainly not a one-way street, is it? Let's just touch on the numbers, because things were quite interesting, right? The home listings numbers pretty similar to last week, but slightly higher, I think, is how I'm reading it.
Yeah, look, they've what we started seeing last week and the week before was an interesting trend, and that's typically the numbers generally fall back by Monday afternoons. They really drop a lot, because obviously that's when properties are being sold. Your more so the properties that got sold by way of auction, and obviously there's private treaty deals as well. So they come off the portals over the weekend, and most of it really happens on Monday. But by Monday evening, most of the sold properties are taken off. But what I'm noticing, and what I've been noticing in the last couple of weeks, is the tally on Monday evenings or Monday afternoons has been increasing. So as much as properties are being selling, there's agents are uploading a lot more properties over the weekend, and I've been getting text messages by new listing up and all this sort of thing. I've been receiving emails of notifications of new listings that have come up on a Sunday, and now. So we're seeing this, and we're starting the week a lot higher, and we have been for the last couple of weeks, starting a lot higher, following this trend. So I'm saying that, which I said to you that before when we started looking at the numbers more closely in early August, is that we will see these numbers rise till potentially the first week of December, which coincided with, if you recall, with the birthday gift that Gladys was supposed to give me when the whole economy was going to open up and everything was going to be open up again. So this is the trend is there. I think we're going to end up only a few hundred short of the peak of 2020 numbers, which is going to be very interesting. given the rhetoric and what the mainstream media are now putting out by way of all of a sudden the attendance at opens and auctions have been waning.
Yeah, absolutely. And that takes us very nicely into the first of our articles, and that relates to the drop in clearance rates for auctions, which is, again, a significant indicator of what's going on.
Yeah, look, it is a significant indicator by way of emotion and something that the general public are so focused on it, because we've been fed this for over a decade. This huge push to put so much attention on auction clearance rates, and that's the mainstream media ones, whereas you and I and most of our followers are more attuned to SQM's numbers, because they're closer to the truth and they're closer to with what's happening. And even Louis, what the numbers that he's put out, as we've mentioned before, is there's been an increase in listing numbers and a decrease in clearance rates, which means that there's going to be more listings for the following week, which also means that potentially the real estate industry is going to have a busy Christmas. It's not going to have much time off, because obviously vendors want to leave. If they're putting new listings on market, they're listing their properties and have been listing the properties over the last 2 weeks and moving forward. If they continue to list the new properties over the following 2 weeks, it's because they want them sold. It's because they want to be on market, given the fact that traditionally, lawyers and conveyancers start going on holidays by the 21st. Of December, and they don't return till the 17th. So not much activity happens in that period of time, because most of them go on holidays. But it seems to me, it's appearing to it gives me the indication that the industry is going to be busy, and I think a lot more conveyancers are also going to be all hands on deck over the what used to be the Christmas break.
Yeah. Well, this year has been weird right through the year, and it looks as though the Christmas is going to be pretty weird too. And on the same thread of auctions, the AFR article is quite relevant here, right? Insofar that the number of registered bidders at an average auction now has dropped dramatically.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, they're talking about dropping from an average of 10 to 3. But look, I've got my doubts about that one. I really have my doubts. So, I sort of like to question it, and Lindsay David also brought it up on Twitter when I posted this up during the week. And I kind of think that the 3 that the AFR are talking about, and I'll name them, one is the vendor's bid. So the vendor becomes a bidder. There's the dummy bidder. There's got to be a dummy bidder in them auctions. Don't tell me that there isn't. Come on, you can say it. Come on. There is. And then there's the dummy that believes the auctioneer and buys the property because they got conned. They're my 3 that turn up to the auction.
Yeah, and interestingly, I've had chats with a couple of people who've been to auctions recently, and were nearly sucked insofar that they suddenly started to realise that some of the people who were bidding weren't necessarily really official bidders.
No.
They actually said to me, "Is that legal?" And I said, "No."
No, definitely not. But look, there is. Look, if all goes pear-shaped, then next week we find out that from the 3 that they're talking about, we end up with 0.5. Well, there is a crowd in Melbourne that are I believe that are itching to leave Melbourne, Martin. And there's they're telling me over the weekend there was about 50,000 to 100,000 protesters, peaceful protesters out there, and potentially we could get 50,000 to 100,000 new attendees at auctions in a month or so.
Well, the question is, will they come to Sydney, or will they go to the Gold Coast and Brisbane like everybody else has done, right? Because the data keeps emphasising that there's the net migration away from Victoria and New South Wales up to Queensland, where property is somewhat cheaper, although perhaps less so. And in fact, the throughput there seems to be quite a lot higher. So interesting. But people still seem to be voting with their feet with regard to exiting Victoria.
Look, they are, and they'll continue to do so. But again, I'm holding my ground on the fact that we will get a lot of those coming to New South Wales as well, because at the end of the day, Queensland's got its own issues, and it's for as far as I'm concerned, unless unless you're prepared to retire. You go where, and if you still got to work another 10, 20, 30 years, I think the jobs are going to be in New South Wales, will continue to be in New South Wales. It's, I don't know, that's just my thoughts. It's got a stronger economy. And my mate Don says it. So
yeah, I was going to say you're premier follower. And interestingly, of course, when you mentioned last week about Australia and New South Wales being the place to be, there was quite a lot of flack back on Twitter afterwards, right? So, but it's an interesting observation that some people aren't seeing it, but I still think that there is very significant positives to this particular locale, and there are some obviously issues too, but I guess it's all relative, really, isn't it?
Look, it is, and beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and so I've always been, I dare say, must say, I've never been to WA. Not that I have any intentions of going there.
I mean, you've never had to show your passport at the border to get in.
I was going to say, not that I've got any aspirations to go there either, or that they will welcome me. But every other state that I've been to in Australia, I just always come back to nothing's taken me, nothing's made me see anything different other than great place to visit. But New South Wales is it for me. It's as far as I'm concerned, for myself, my family, Dusty and Evan. We love it, we enjoy it, and this is where we will continue to grow our veggies and build a chook pen soon, and just eat off the fat of the land, because there won't be any fat anywhere else.
Yeah, fair enough. And third article, we have to talk about it. The supply chain crunches, the inflationary pressures, be they fears or be they real. And there are reports of prices being a lot higher around the traps. Supply chain disruption means that you can't get some stuff. And actually, wherever you look, and you've got a few different examples here, there are stories of inflationary pressures wherever you look, pretty much.
All the time. And somebody said on Twitter, it's their understanding, and I'm sure it's yours and mine as well, that the mainstream are telling us the inflation was going to be transitory. So is the depressions are transitory as well, aren't they? So the question is, what are we really going to walk into? But it's as we've said for a while, 2021 has its issues. It's had its issues. It's had its concerns. But I think the biggest concerns are around the corner, and that is, again, as we've mentioned on previous podcasts, with regards to which also leads to an understanding of what the appetite for what type of property is going to be more enhanced next year, but we said that we do farm, we do graze, we do grow, we do do all these sorts of things, but that's not going to be the issue. The issue is getting the raw product or raw material to the secondary industry, and will they be able to can it and package it to transport it to the retailers, to your Woolworths and Coles and IGAs and the like. I mean, back in the day when I was growing up, there was one, if not two, in some cases, in some suburbs, three butchers in every suburb. Now we've count the butchers. You've got Woolworths and Coles, and every now and again you might have an independent butcher, unless you go to suburbs that have got high concentration of a particular ethnic community. So these issues and these retailers are demanding more and more from their suppliers, and the suppliers, the crunch that comes onto the suppliers by way of the cost of the packaging, the cost of the transport, the cost of the raw materials to to farm, like as with fertilizers or feed or anything of that nature, it becomes more costly, and labor is becoming more and more costly because of the fact that the little brothers and the little sisters aren't around to pay for cheap labor, and they're not coming anytime soon. The more I talk to a lot of these small operators, particularly in the Asian community, the more they tell me that they're losing staff left, right, and centre because they're all going back to China. They're too scared to stay. They've been here long enough. They've made enough money for them to go back now. They can't really move around because you need the ID to get into places. There's more pressures on them moving around from one place to another. They travel predominantly in vans and in station wagons, and they become a target to the authorities because it's an easy target. Pull over a wagon load of Asians and ask them for their IDs. So they're fearful of getting caught. They're fearful of getting locked up. All these fears happening there. So which means that the small operators of small industries, small farms in the fringes of Sydney, they're losing the staff. So it's becoming more and more costly, and the pressure's on now. And on that point, you've got the issues that's happening in America with regards to, as of midnight, they're going to be paying an arm and a leg for just having the ships there. So there's an added cost. But locally, you've got one of our followers from Queensland, Philip, that makes an interesting point where one of his good acquaintance. One of his acquaintances, friends, has stores that they got quoted on, $500,000 to build, to build future stores, and the quote's just been recently revised from 500,000 to 1.1. So, how do you like them apples?
Well, this is the point, of course. I get it as well from some of my conversation points that the costs that were laid out on the line a year, 18 months ago for building, be it residential or be it commercial, got way off. I mean, not just a few hundred, off, but thousands and thousands and thousands. And for many people, of course, they were getting a mortgage to make this all work. And suddenly now they need a huge, bigger mortgage. And now they find it very difficult to get the mortgage. So it really does highlight the pincer movement that all this inflationary pressure leads to, and the fact that people won't necessarily be able to complete on the contracts that they expected to complete. And if they do choose to go ahead, they've got to be even more committed. And many of them were highly committed, very high debt to income ratios just to get the mortgage they wanted to start with. So to my mind, this is another leading indicator of more pressure on more households ahead.
Look, definitely. And then you've got all these government incentives as well, your 2% interest, special interest, and your 15% loans, and this, that, and the other, and it all adds up. Just want to briefly mention a story. The Billy's story is with our viewers, just to Billy, to sort of put a lot of this into context, and to also talk about the future appetite, as what I believe is going to be the future appetite with regards to property. So Billy is a local small Sydney farmer. He's got 5 acres out near Badgerys Creek. He's been supplying Coles and Woolies with Asian groceries, and now apart from the Chinese takeaway shops and restaurants. So I had a really long conversation with him over the weekend as I was getting my bok choy seedlings, and he's a long-time friend, and it was rather interesting hearing it from the horse's mouth with regards to what was happening firsthand. So the packaging and the way the pressure that the main shops purchases of his goods are being demanding, basically in essence. So his packaging costs have gone from $15,000 to $16,000 a month to $37,000 a month. The cost to ship, if he can find truck drivers, because they have to obviously ship the goods to the stores, in the evening, late night, early morning. So that's increased because truck drivers are also not available, particularly ones that can speak both Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese and English, because obviously also with the restrictions that these grocery stores have put on the who can come into the premises by way of mandates, by way of wax mandates. The little brothers that used to assist him in picking the fruit, other than his family, are going back to China. Half of them have already gone back, and the other half are looking, of going back ASAP. So what he's doing, and this is the concern that I have with regards to the beginning of mid to late 2022, that we're going to start seeing margin, and that is what he's doing. He's basically going to turn his 5 acres into a warehousing estate, and he's going to stop farming altogether. And because the cool rooms are costing too much, they have to be upgraded and so forth. So where, let's say, he was getting 20 cents a bok choy, now he's getting 10 cents because of all the added costs, and it's just not worth his while. So he's going to turn his 5 acres of prime agricultural land in the fringes of Sydney. He's going to convert it to basically warehousing, to rent to other to other people, to rent it out. And that's what's going to happen. He's not the only one. He's got many of his friends that are in the same position. So this is why I say that 2022 is going to be loaded with a lot of other issues, and hence the reason why we're saying that the WeChat chatterers from overseas that are ready to come, the professionals, and not only the WeChat chatterers, but many other professionals that have got the PR ready to come, they're not going to be interested in strata complexes, particularly high-rise. They're going to be interested in freestanding homes with a bit of land, so that they can at least grow some veggies and have a chook or two to get some eggs and have something. It's a grave concern what's going to happen with these supply chain crunches all around, and what else is going to be in short supply is the next question.
Well, grow those carrots, right? Being a little bit more self-sufficient is quite useful. And what's interesting, of course, is that Billy's story is just one microcosm, right? But I bet he's not the only person who's thinking the same thought, which is it's now uneconomic to continue growing, primary foodstuffs, right? And I've got to find an alternative, whether it's wind farms or whether it's something else, or warehousing or whatever it is. But what that does is it reduces the production of foodstuffs in the Sydney Basin to come into Sydney. And at some point, that means that the quality and quantity of materials that are available for sale in all the supermarkets will continue to deteriorate. And unfortunately, it's a one-way street, because once you've turned it into a warehouse, it's going to be blooming hard to turn it back into farmland again. Why
bother? I mean, when they bought the land, when they bought the land 20, 25, 30 years ago, him and his friends, when they were buying those small farms out where nobody else wanted to basically go and work, they bought them for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now the developers are paying some of his friends 1.5 to 1.7 per acre. Because of for future development with regards to the Badgerys Creek and all the development that's happening around there. So why bother? As you said, Billy is just a drop in an Olympic pool with what's happening. And this is moving forward. And how many more? Now, he spoke of 2 of his other friends, where one's taken an offer from a developer at 1.7 per acre and another one at 1.5. Billy's not selling his. So there's 3. So in essence, there's about, in total between them, there's about 17 or 18 acres between them of farmland that we are not going to recover. So where are we going to get the fruit and veggies? Some will say, "Oh yeah, we'll go to over to Orange and over the mountains and look at those those areas there and the farming lands there," and then you transport and everything else. So it's really going to be an issue, and I think more and more people are I know that the people that have given us the mandates to look for property for them that are preparing to come over, there's one of the specific requests is, to have room, to have land, to do something, not that they're going to turn into farms, but, to do something, to have a backyard. In other words, at least bigger than 550 square meters as opposed to the lots that they're getting of 280 square meters.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I get it too from my conversations with a lot of people, both internationally and locally, who are looking at Australia and Australian property, trying to understand what's going on. And almost always it's a standalone place with some land. And why? Because they want to have a little bit of flexibility to be able to let the kids run around, but also to grow some stuff in the backyard. And it's a very important part of the story. And the other point I'd make here, Edwin, of course, if you think about the rolling release of land, it's coming further and further out. So, basically more is going up for development. So you've got a pincer movement, right? You've got essentially the development of residential land without much else, right? And then you've got the conversion of farmland into other functions as well. The net result of that is you've got less and less available land to grow stuff. And unfortunately, you do need land to grow stuff if you want to get food.
That's right. And taking it over the mountains, it's costly by way of transport at the end of the day, but also the lands over the mountains aren't as fertile as what the lands that are now disappearing and have been disappearing for a couple of decades.
Absolutely. Well, let's close as normal, Edwin, with a tip of the week. And this is a real doozy.
Look, this is it's a strategy, one of the many strategies that we adopt. So when it comes to making offers, more so because of what's happening around at the moment. So the tip of the week, the way that we started the show is basically hold the line. What I've been sharing on Twitter is hold the line. Don't get just keep on monitoring the numbers. The general consensus is that more numbers are coming on market. So this is just one of the many strategies. So obviously each to their own, and this is just a strategy of many that we adopt, and we adopt strategies. It's a moving target. It's not a stationary target. So, so you make an offer based on what you want to pay pre-auction. And what I've said before, make sure it's a written offer. It's a solid written offer, so there's more onus on the real estate agent to present that offer to the vendor. So and it also helps the agent. It helps the selling agent to start creating a story, and it's helping you as a buyer and other buyers, because that narrative, that sentiment has to change, the emotion has to change. But by you giving it as a firm written offer, by way of email, text message, if you need to, it's a strong tool that you can use, and it helps everybody else also that's looking at buying. So then, if it goes to auction, just don't get caught up in the emotion and don't overpay. Decide what you are going to pay before the auction, and set your boundaries, set your buffer, and that's it. Don't get caught up in the emotion. Don't forget, if there's three at auction, it's the vendor's bid, the dummy bidder, and you will be the dummy if you end up getting caught in the emotion and paying above the real price. And of course, as we're going to hear more stories of more properties being sold after auction, and the typical scenario is that there'll be a vendor's bid. 9 out of 10 times there'll be a vendor's bid to set the bar. So then, take it on board and then revise your original offer, or the offer that you were prepared to pay at the auction, and start negotiating again with another written offer post auction. But the important thing is hold the line and don't get emotional, because now more than ever we are seeing more numbers coming on market.
Yeah, and Edwin, I suppose if it is post auction and that you're up against a vendor bid, then you'll take the offer down a bit, won't you?
Of course, yeah, definitely. You revise it down, and you start negotiating from, and you're going to have you've got the position of strength. So if the property is passed in at the auction, you're in a position of strength when you submitted the first written offer in the first place. So you hold you can direct which way things go. Obviously, it's a part of the many things that we adopt. You've got to read the agent, and again, it's if you've got to help the agent help you. That's the key. You've got to help the agent help you, help your cause. And if it's not with this one, and he becomes a friend to you, and he knows that you're a strong buyer, and he knows that you're more than likely could potentially, as obviously we do, is then we start chasing other purchases, and hopefully we land the real off market stuff, which are the gems.
Yeah, and that's the interesting observation, Edwin, is because you end up effectively, rather than you being played by the agent, effectively the agent is being played, not in a sort of assisted, yeah. But the point is that he's actually working for you, or she's working for you, right? And that's actually the right way around. That's the way the formulation can work and should work. It doesn't often work, but again, if you hold the line and if you think about it, carefully, cautiously, and don't get caught up in the emotion, you're going to get a much better deal. And I think it's a really very, very important tip, particularly with the higher listings that are on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from a psychological point of view, at the end of the day, you and I know, Martin, that the agent's first protocol is him or herself. At the end of the day, they want to sell because they want to feed themselves. And that's what you're banking on. Yep. So we could. It's just one of the small things to look at, but it can have a great effect on the future, and you're not over your future, and you're not overpaying, and you're comfortable. You can feel comfortable to walk away. That if you didn't get at the price that you were willing to pay, no regrets. Not at the moment. Not if things start changing again and we start, numbers start dropping again. Look, I am confident that we're going to surpass 2020 figures and watch the mainstream media. If we do go past 2020's peak, which was freestanding homes just over 8,300, if we do pass that, it's really and more banks go on their own with rate rises, rate hikes. Is it going to be the perfect storm for property at the end of 2021, which is really going to put pressure in the first quarter of 2022 for a lot of vendors?
Well, we'll watch it as normal, and if people come and listen to the rant each week, they'll get first-hand experience and an objective view of what's going on. And I always get a bit fed up when some of the YouTube comments say, property bears, they're always negative. No, we're just calling it as it is, right? And helping people to make better decisions. And we'll go on doing that because we think that's really important.
Yeah, I'll leave you with this last thought. Now that you mentioned that, Martin, I don't normally look at those comments or go or pay too much attention. But one of the many people that follow us that's been a critic of yourself and myself, made a comment last week when I posted with regard to us getting a property for one of our clients for about 175,000 below what it should have sold for, and if it was on market now, potentially they could have got an extra $100,000 as well, in comparison to another property that got sold around the corner 2 or 3 weeks ago, an inferior property that got sold for $250,000 more, and on top of that, that property needed to be fully gutted. So you're looking at another $350,000, because due to the size of the home and what needed to be done. So obviously, now that made a comment. Oh, yeah, if the market was going to go down, well, why did you get them to buy? Well, dipstick. Here's my answer why I got them to buy. Because one, we bought at $175,000 below market at the time. And in retrospect, looking at what happened recently, a week or 2 weeks later, where another agent sold the property of inferior quality for an extra $150,000. That is what. And if the market turns around, guess who's going to be sitting pretty? Our buyer is going to be sitting pretty because they've mitigated, they've buffered a potential loss. Whereas you are going to go out there and pay peak like Lizzie in Queensland, that they've foregoes the cooling off rights, foregoes any due diligence, and you're just going to be like Lizzie. So for our viewers, don't be like Lizzie.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, once you've locked yourself in, you're locked in. So lock in at the right point, particularly now. So Edwin, I appreciate your time today. Great advice as always, and we'll do it all again next week, eh?
Oh, look, definitely, and I'm hoping that ScoMo will follow me by next week.
Well, yeah. Well, if Biden does too, then you'll know you've really hit the big league, eh? Thanks, Edwin. See you later. Take care. Bye-bye.